Hello, beautiful people. If you are new here, my name is Jo. If you are not new here, welcome back to my channel. It is so great to have you all here today with me. So what I've been doing on this channel is a comprehensive wrap up of the things that I've read at the end of the month. However, I have noticed that not only am I reading a lot of books, but I'm also tending to shorten my description for each of the books that I read in order to make sure that the videos at the end of the month are not super long. I don't really like doing that. And it's kind of a little bit difficult to remember exactly what I thought, exactly what I read at the beginning of the month when we're at the end of the month. So we're gonna try something new this month, a mid-month wrap-up for August. So I have, I think, 6 books to talk about. Is that how many I have? 5 books? I'm not sure. So the first book that I finished in the month of August was Return of the Rogue by Donna Fletcher. This is a historical romance, obviously. I'm trying to get more into historicals. I dipped my toes into it a couple of years ago, but I never really dove into it as much as I wanted to. So I'm giving it another shot. I have some more that I'm planning on reading later on in the month, later on in the year. Anyways, we're not talking about those right now. We're talking about Donna Fletcher. In this story, we are following Honora, not sure how to pronounce that. I'm not good with names. And Cavan Sinclair. So at the beginning of this story, our heroine, Honora, however you pronounce her name, she is arranged to be married to one of the Sinclair brothers. Her stepfather is kind of the type of person who is vying for more power. He wants more power, more influence, and he believes that marrying off his stepdaughter to the future leader of the Sinclair clan will give him what he wants. During the time in which the marriage was arranged between Honora's stepfather and the Sinclair's daddy pops, Cavan is missing. He has been captured by rogues. Him and one of the other brothers have been captured. Nobody's heard from him since. Honora is arranged to marry his brother, and on her wedding day, Cavan returns. He interrupts the wedding. There's an interrupted wedding. When Cavan returns, Honora's stepfather argues that in reality, Honora is actually married to Cavan and not his brother, because he technically made it into this whole big thing where she is betrothed to the next leader of the Sinclair clan. And now that Cavan is back, he is the next leader of the Sinclair clan. Therefore, Cavan and Honora are now married. Now, Cavan is not very happy about this because he sees Honora as this kind of meek, weak little lady who's just going to be super obedient. She's gonna do what she's supposed to do. She doesn't really have any fire within her. But what he does not know is that she is that way for a reason. There is a trigger warning for abuse. Her stepfather is very abusive. He is a nasty little man, and I do not like him at all. This story has a hero with a tragic past type of trope, as our main man, Cavan, has some issues from his past when he was being held by these rogues. This is also an enemies to friends to lovers type of book, and I really enjoyed it. And I think it's a good start. It's a good start for my dip back into historical romance. This also has a who did this to you trope. So if you're into that, I know I'm into that. So there it is. Overall, I really like this. And I think it was a really good introduction or reintroduction to the world of historical romance for me. And I'm excited to read more from Donna Fletcher. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Hi. If you see a dog, you're not crazy. He is right here. The next book that I finished in the month of August was Tragic Blondes. Tragic Bonds by J. Bree. This is book number 5 in the Bonds That Tie series. I have been making my way very swiftly through this series and have been enjoying it. This is a new adult Why Choose romance series between 1 female and 5 males, I think. So in this world, the fated mates aspect is determined by your blood. They test it in some sort of way and your blood matches with other people's blood. I don't really understand it, but there is a central bond who has the potential to have multiple other bonds themselves. So in the first book, we are following Ollie, who is a central bond to these 5 very powerful dudes in this world. And at the beginning of the first book, she has been captured, and the people who have captured her are going to be returning her back to her bonds, whom she has never met. Because for some reason that we find out later on, she ran away, and she is none too happy to be captured and returned to these men that she has never met, and her bonds are none too happy with her for running away. So in this 5th book, Tragic Bonds, there is a lot of emotional issues. There's a lot of things going on. There are a lot of things that are revealed about one of Ollie's bonds, specifically Knox. There is a trigger warning for CSA. In this book, I was very disturbed. One thing though is that I kind of felt like the story was starting to get a little bit repetitive. I really liked the fact that Knox and Ollie's relationship started to develop, but in all the other aspects, I felt like it was getting a little bit repetitive, and where I completely devoured the other 4 books in this series, this one took me the longest to read, and I gave it 3.5 stars. I still want to read the 6th book. Don't get me wrong. I still want to read the 6th book, and I will read the 6th book when it comes out, but this one was starting to get a little bit repetitive. But I have a feeling with the ending of this book that the story is going to go in a whole different direction for book number 6, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I gave it 3.5 stars. Next, we have Contradictions by Ampersand. This is a fan fiction, a Hermione fan fiction, Draco and Hermione fan fiction. If you have spent any amount of time on my channel whatsoever within the recent times, you know that Manacled by Sinlin Yu is pretty much my top read of the year. It is another Draco and Hermione fanfiction. Super dark, super gritty, super delicious. I picked up Contradictions by Ampersand because I cannot get enough of Draco and Hermione. I just can't get enough. I just ate it. I just ate it up. I buddy read this with Melody from Mel Binds Fix. She is on Instagram and she actually binds fanfictions, so she's extra cool. If you are interested in seeing her work, it is beautiful, by the way. I will have her Instagram profile linked down below in the description. Anyways, let's move on. Contradictions by Ampersand. Lord have mercy. Okay, so in this story, Hermione is having a little bit of issues in the bedroom. She is not able to focus on what's going on. She pretty much just lays there and is like, what did I eat for lunch? Should I go to the grocery store? Like, she's having some issues, right? She's just gotten out of a long-term relationship with Ronald Weasley. So she decides to do some research on what her specific issue is. And the thing that pops up that she might want to try is BDSM. So she decides to go to this very private sex club, pretty much, called the Scarlet Order, in which you fill out this form about all your kinks and interests and things that you will try, won't try, things like that, and you submit it to them and they match you with what seems to be a perfect partner. She goes to the Scarlet Order in hopes that she will either solve her problem or mark BDSM off the list because she doesn't think she's a BDSM girl, but anyways, who do they match her up with? Draco Malfoy, the one man who she should not be messing around with. This is my first time reading anything with BDSM, dom sub type situations in it, and I absolutely loved it. It was so good. The communication that Draco insists upon during their scenes is immaculate. He is a hero that definitely pays attention to his woman, what her reactions are, what she's feeling in the moment. So there is BDSM in this book. There is edging, dom sub situations. There is bondage. There is also voyeurism, which I found really interesting, but I really enjoyed it. If the camera angle changed, I am so sorry. My dog started barking because apparently it's starting to storm outside and he thought the thunder was someone knocking on the door. Anyways, I loved Contradictions. I thought the development of their relationship to casual fuck buddies to really devoted sweethearts was delicious, and I loved it so much. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was so much fun. Behind Closed Doors by Susan R. Sloan. Now this is something completely different than everything we've been talking about so far. This is a thriller novel. I picked this up on recommendation from my mother. Hello, mother. Love you to death. So in this story, we are following our main girl, Valerie, who in 1955, she meets and marries this man named Jack Marsh. She doesn't really know him that well, but she has been raised to kind of idealize the married lifestyle, and all seems to be going great until their wedding night, when he pretty much sexually assaults her. And that starts a series of abuses that continue across a span of a long time, like 45 years. In the prologue of this book, we are introduced to Valerie as she is sitting on the defense stand because she is being charged with her husband's murder. As you can imagine, there are a lot of trigger warnings for this book. Here are the ones that I have written down. There is abuse, both child abuse and spousal abuse. There is substance abuse. There is rape. There is miscarriage is a trigger warning. And there's also death of a child. It was very dark. I'm not gonna lie. And at times I was getting a little bit frustrated with Valerie. She is very naive. She is very innocent, and she was pretty much plucked out of her home. Right when she hits adulthood, she is thrust into this marriage, and because of Jack's job, they have to move pretty far away from the rest of her family. So she is pretty isolated, and she does seem a little bit naive at times, but she is a badass bitch. She is a badass bitch. I really liked her character development. Jack Marsh, her husband, is abusive, but what's interesting about this book is not only do you get Valerie's perspective, but you also get little snippets of Jack's perspective as well as their children, and how this abuse has affected each and every person in the family, because Jack not only is abusive to his family, but he was also abused as a child as well. So you can really see how abuse affects people in different ways psychologically. All of the bad things happen right on the page. It is also very emotional, and one thing that I forgot to write down is depression. Depression plays a huge factor in the latter half of this book. It's one of those books where I don't want to say I loved it so much. It was so great. It was so fun. You should read it because it is very dark and it is very emotional, and the characters deal with a lot of dark things and a lot of difficult topics are discussed in this book, but I really, really loved it, and I don't know what to do with that information. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The last book that I want to talk about today is one that I don't think is going to be beat this month because I absolutely freaking loved it, and that is Making Faces by Amy Harmon. Lord have mercy. So I read this book because Liezl from Liezl Loves Books, I'll have her channel linked down below, she recommends it a lot on her channel. So in this story, we are following Fern, who, when we meet her, she is in high school in September of 2001. Now, if you can imagine what that kind of time period entails, you can kind of see where this is going. So she is hopelessly in love with this guy named Ambrose. He is the star of the wrestling team. He has pretty much got everything going for him. They're both seniors, and Ambrose has gotten this scholarship to Penn State to wrestle for them. He is like the golden boy of the town. And one day, unfortunately, when they are sitting in class, 9/11 happens, and they spend the rest of the day watching the tragedy unfold. So if that is a tender subject for you, definitely be aware of that before you pick up this book. Due to that tragedy, Ambrose decides that he wants to take his life into his own hands and make his own decisions for his life for the first time, and he decides to join the army. He asks his 4 other friends to join him, and because they don't really have any idea what their plans are for the future yet, they decide to join him. And so the summer after their high school graduation, these 5 boys are shipped off overseas to fight in a war. Tragically, 4 of them die, and Ambrose is left with both physical and mental scars from what happened to his friends. He blames himself, some of the people in the town blame him, and he is afraid to kind of leave the house. So obviously we have PTSD. We also have some disability rep in Fern's best friend and cousin, Bailey. My man Bailey, he has muscular dystrophy, and he is literally a ray of sunshine in the darkness. He is one of those characters where I immediately attach to him. He's funny, he's snarky, he's sarcastic, he is just the bee's knees. This is a story not only about the development of the romance between Fern and Ambrose, but it's also a beautiful emotional story about healing and acceptance and grief. I laughed, I cried, I screamed. I felt every single array of emotions during the course of this book. I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. This also obviously has some trigger warnings, PTSD, 9/11, war, death, as well as abuse, because one of the characters in this story is abused by their spouse. This is a darker sort of book, but it has so much hope in it, and it's so beautiful, and I loved it so much. If you are wondering though, this book does not have any spice in it. No spice. No spice for this book, but I didn't miss it. I was so attached to the characters. I loved each and every one of them individually and for their own reasons, and I was invested regardless of the lack of penises. So, if that tells you anything, it was a good book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So those are the books that I have read in the first half of August. Let me know down below, what is your favorite book that you've read in August so far, and what are you excited about for the rest of August? If you are not already, make sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss any more future bookish content from me. I hope that you do. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.